Hello everyone, welcome to tutorial 10. In this week we are going to actually explore array, loops and conditional statements. So we are going to get deeper into the JavaScript program. So some of the things that you will learn in this chapter would be to be able to create an array. Also, you can actually work with the properties of the array and also use the methods. And we will also talk about how to create a program loop. Maybe you have heard about looping before in other courses, but we're going to talk about also with for loop. Also, we will look at the comparison and logical operators, as well as learning how to create a conditional statement. We will also learn how to use the if statement as well. So let's see this chapter. Actually, if you go on tutorial 10, you will see that the case that's there, the program manager wants us to help with developing an event calendar application. So rather than creating that manually, he wants us to write a JavaScript program to automatically generate a web table for that kind of a calendar month, listing the events that can occur at the theater during that month. The application is also can be flexible to work with any month, so that if the program manager has to enter the event list each time, he can actually wants you to develop a prototype for that calendar. So the calendar should appear in the form of a web table, so that's the main part, and basically with links to a specified events with that month. So the appearance and placement of the calendar, as we have learned, if you want to work with the appearance and the placement, you will use the CSS style sheet. The program also, as we said, it can be easily adaptable, so it can be used to create other monthly calendar as well. So let's look at the example here. So this is the style sheet for the calendar table that we have. And this is the JavaScript file that we generate the HTML code for the calendar table. So, so the location of the calendar table, we are putting it here. The HTML code with the calendar table will be placed in the div element. So that's where the location of the calendar table will be. So before we begin building it, we're going to review the structure of the calendar. So name and IDs, they have to be assigned to different part of the table. So entire calendar is set as a web table with the ID as called calendar table. The cell containing the calendar title will have an ID that's called calendar_head. And then you will have 7 cells containing the days of the week, and that will belong to the class calendar_weekdays. Also, all the cells that contain the dates of the month, they belong to the class date, calendar dates. And those cells that contain the current date has the ID calendar today. For why do we have class and ID designation? It's make it easier for the page developer to basically assign different style to a different part of the calendar. So if a developer wants to change the table's appearance, they will not have to actually edit those JavaScript code. They can basically modify that part of the style sheet. The first thing that we are going to talk about is add the calendar function. So we basically going to place the command that generates the calendar with a single function that's called create calendar. So we will have this function that's called create calendar in a parentheses. So how do we do that? initial code to generate it will be variable this day equals new date, so that's when you want to create it, new. And then document.get element by, you have the calendar dot inner HTML create calendar this day. So this day variable basically in here stores the current date. So we are going to use this August 24, 2018. This part, this line will actually, the function stores the HTML code for that calendar. So this is basically, as we said, it will store the HTML code for the calendar in the div element with the ID calendar that we have just created. We talked about it above. So basically, in here, if we look at, this, we will put function create calendar, calendar date. And in there, we are putting the variable calendar HTML. Also, we have it in the table. And then calendar HTML plus or equal. And then we have the table. And then, of course, our function has to return something. So we're returning this. So for this part, we are actually the function create calendar. This is basically the function that we are using. So it will have the opening and the closing tag of the table element. And then we put the value of the ID attribute here with a single quote, because the entire text string of the HTML code is already enclosed with the double quotes in there. And then the last part, this plus and equal assignment operator basically adds a text string to the value of the calendar HTML variable. Okay, the next thing that we are going to talk about is we're going to talk about arrays. So we are going to actually looking at the arrays, and then we are going to continue with our example and complete the rest of our table. So just for the arrays, there are a few things that we are going to discuss. So in here we can see the getMonth method is basically, you can use that to extract a number of the month, and then use the getFullYear method that can extract the 4-digit year value. One way to associate each month number with a month name is by using an array. So let's look at that. Array is basically a collection of values that can be organized under a single name. For all the arrays, one thing that you have to remember is you need to have an index. Index is the number that each individual value is associated with, and it distinguishes from the other values in the array. So the array values, basically, they are being the expression that can be used is array in a bracket I, where array is the name of the array and the I is the index of the specific value in the array. So the index can actually start from 0. So you can have the initial value as 0. The second item in the array will have the value of 1, and so on. So in this example here, the expression month name 4 references the 5th, not the 4th item, because we always initialize the array with 0. So let's see how we can create an array and populate our array. To be able to create an array, we are creating the object constructor. So we have variable array, new array, length. This where the array basically is the name of our array, and the length is the number of items in the array. So the length value can be optional. If the length parameter is omitted, then the array expands automatically as more items that can be added into it. So we said that an array can be populated with values by specifying both the array name and the index number of the array item. So we can use command to set the value of a specific item in an array. We can have array in a parenthesis I equals to value. So that value is the value that's assigned to the array item with the index value of I. So an example could be that we want to insert month name in the month name array, starting with January. We can actually, instead of the array name, the name would be month name. And then, of course, we're going to start with the index of 0. And then the value would be January. Then we are going to have again month name. In here, we will have 1. In here, equals to February, and so on. So we can populate the entire array in a single statement using this command. Variable array equals new array values. So the values is a comma separated list of the value in the array. So that array name, we said it's going to be the month name equals new array, and then the values will be January, comma, February, and so on, rather than having as I mentioned before, like you can have month name start with the array index of 0 equals to January, and then you write again month name index of 1, or you can have them all in a single statement using like this example here. Another way to create an array is with an array literal. In this way, the array values are a comma separated list with a set of square bracket. So we have the variable array equals value. So you can have the name of the array was month name, and then equals to the values. You have them comma separated list with a set of square brackets in here. So you can have them as this. Array values, they need not be of the same data type. So mixed numeric values, text string, and other types within a single array can be actually allowed. So you can have this is a variable x equals to, you can have different type of values in here. As you can see, they're all of these will have different data types. Now let's look at how to work with array length. JavaScript array normally expands its length as more items can be added. To determine the array's current size, we can actually say array.length, where array is the name of the array and the length value that is being returned by length is equal to no more than the highest index number in the array. So for instance, if the array, the highest number in the index is 11, the value returned would be 12. JavaScript also allows for creation of a sparse array in which some array values are basically undefined. So the length value is not always the same as the number of the array values. It can occur frequently in the database applications, and the value of the length property cannot be reduced without removing items from the end of the array. So in some of those databases that we said, like that can involve like records of the customer, maybe the phone number for the mobile number or the postal code haven't been entered for every person. So we cannot reduce the value of the length property without removing the items from the end of our array. For instance, if we have the month name array to the first 3 months, January, February, March, we can put month name dot length equals to 3. So increasing the value of length property adds more item to an array, but the items that have null value until they are being defined. So the next thing we are going to look at is reversing an array. Items are placed in either in the order in which they are defined or explicitly by items number by default. JavaScript basically supports 2 methods of changing the order of the array. One of them is the reverse function, and then the other one is the sort function. So reverse method, as you can see from the name, it means that changing the order of these items. So basically you can make the last item first and then the first item last. So we can use the reverse method to change the order of the value. So for instance, if we have in the reverse order, if we have the variable weekday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, in the reverse method we will start from Saturday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, and finally Sunday. Another method that we're going to talk about is the sort. Sort method rearranges the array item in alphabetical order. The sort method, when applied to the numeric values, will sort the values in order by their leading digit rather than by their numerical values. So compare functions compare value of the 2 adjacent array items. So general form of a compare function is function fname AB return a negative, positive, or 0, where that fname is the name of the compare function and A and B are parameters that can represent a pair of array values. The function then it can return negative, positive, or 0 based on the comparison of those values. If a negative value is returned, then A is placed before B in the array. If positive value is returned, then B is placed before A in there. And if a 0 value is returned, A and B return their original positions. Also, we have a function to sort numeric value in ascending order. We have function ascending AB, return A minus B. Whereas to sort numbers in descending order, we can apply basically this function descending AB, return B minus A, which subtract A from B rather than B from A. We have other compare functions, but these are the 2 simplest of the sorting array of the numeric values. To compare function is applied to the sort method. We can say array.sort fname, where that fname is the name of the compare function. For instance, we can use the ascending compare function to sort the X array. So in here we have X sorting ascending. So after applying the sort method with ascending function, the value in the X array could be sorted in ascending numeric order. Now let's look at how to extract and insert array items. Maybe in some script we want to extract a section of array that can be known as subarray. One way to create that subarray is to use this method, slice. Array does slice, start and stop. where that start is the index value of the array item in which the slicing start, and a stop is the index value of which the slicing can stop. The stop index value is not included in the stop array. The stop value is basically optional. If it's omitted, the array is sliced to its end. Related to the slice method, there is also a splice method, which we can have in here array.splice start size value. Basically, start is the starting index in the array. Size is the number of array items to remove after the start index, and value is an optional comma-separated list of values to insert into array. If no values is there, the splice method simply removes the items from the array. So if we want to look at the example here, in this example, we use the splice method to remove the summer months from the month name array. And if we want to, and in this also, if we want to insert the abbreviation of the month name into the month name array, we can also use month name.splice 53, the index basically starting from the 5th index number, and then we have the 3 values June, July, August, which we have abbreviated it in there. There is a difference between the splice and a slice, and that is that the splice method always alters the original array. So we shouldn't use the splice method if we want the original array to be left alone. The last thing that we are going to talk about in this 10.1 section is using array as data stacks. Basically, stacks are arrays that can be used to store information in a data structure. New items, they can be added to the top of the stack or the end of our array. A stack data structure uses the last in, first out LIFO principle. And in the LIFO principle, the last item added to the stack are basically the first ones that are being removed. Basically, JavaScript can support several methods for us to work with a stack of array of items. One of those methods is push method that appends new item to the end of an array. It has the syntax array.pushValues, where those values is a common separated list of values to be appended to the end of the array. To remove, or what we call it on the stack, the last item, we can apply the pop method. And that pop method, you can use array.pop in this case. Queue also, which uses the first in, first out, which we call it FIFO principle, in which the first item added to the data list is the first that needs to be removed. Is also similar to a stack. We can see the FIFO principle in action in line of people waiting to be served. For array data that should be treated as a queue, we can use the shift method, which basically removes the first array item. And then we can also use onShift method, which insert new item at the front of an array. So basically in here we can see that these are all other methods that can be applied to arrays. Basically arrays, they are very powerful and useful features in JavaScript language and as well as Java language as well. The methods associated with the arrays, they can be used to simplify the capability of the web page scripts that we have. So these are basically the methods that we can use the array, and this is the description of all of them. It's very good to practice these functions or these methods for the arrays, and it's going to help us in simplifying and also give more capability to our JavaScript. This is the first part of this week's lecture. Please tune in to the second part of the week's lecture in another video. Thank you. Bye-bye.